That helps. Does this help? Thank you. Does that work? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hello. I think it should be working now. Let me know if the sound is working. We have a few minutes to figure this out. Can you hear me now? I sure hope so. Oh, yeah, you should. I see the meter ticking here. It should be working. Hi, JC. Good to see you, Jeff. Yeah, we're starting in just a minute or two or four. Sounds good. Okay. Hey, Kyle. Good to see you. My dedicated fans, my 15 people of fame. Hello, Andrew. Glad to see you here. Yeah, I've missed a few weeks. We're going to start in a few minutes, but I've missed a few weeks. I was at my daughter's wedding last week. Hello, Hidden Doll. Hello, Hidden Doll. Good to see you here. Kyle, this is what's happened to me. So you wrote to me, and I sent you a video back, very high tech, and you were impressed, and you wrote back to me. And I haven't written back, but I'll tell you why. I've gotten so slow at reading long texts. I mean, I read my own when I'm writing them, but I am working more and more in audio. The books I've read since I've seen you guys last, good Lord. I had a 10-hour drive in both directions to my daughter's wedding in Portland, Oregon, and read a 600-page book about the German romantic idealist's approach to biology. I swooned. Yesterday, I was out on a walk and was reading an incredible book, logical fictions in medieval literature and philosophy. This is not who I thought I'd be, but it all very much relates to the topics that interest me, the projects I'm working on. I'm going to turn on a little bit more. Wait, no, I can fix this way. I'm trying to understand what the actual fuck we are. And I find that in this work, humans have trouble figuring out what we are because we're distracted and disoriented by language. So it leads to dualism, the sense that there must be some other realm besides the physical to explain us because we're having trouble explaining us from the strictly physical. So, early on, everybody's doing that. They're all saying, well, what are we? We must be something added from another realm. So it's actually psychological work, and it does relate to all the stuff on MAGA as well. This book, Logical Fictions in Medieval Literature and Philosophy, is totally related to my work on assholes and the wild card, trump card formula, because these are people struggling early on. They just got language, this newfangled contraption for figuring out what things are, and they're totally distracted by it. And you're hearing the medieval philosophers struggling with what it is, what an abstraction is, what a unicorn is. Since there are none, what is it? What are we doing when we're talking about unicorns? One version of it is that we're identifying real categories in the real physical world, in which case you would eliminate all of those. This is the approach that was taken by what they call the logical positivists, the Vienna Circle. These were people saying questions about God are irrelevant because God doesn't exist, or questions about unicorns, or is the king of France bald? Was one of the questions they were dealing with, since there was no king of France in the Vienna Circle days. So part of them is saying let's just eliminate all the bullshit. Let's not talk about MAGA, making America great again. That's just an abstraction. We got to stick with the concrete. And these other guys who are saying, no, there are these, all language is like that. They called it flatus vocis, vocal farting is what they called it. That humans just make up categories. And so you got this relationship between those two schools of thought all the way back in the medieval times. and they're working it out. They're straining and struggling to figure it out. And I mean, yes, I'm going to take. Well, it's 11 o'clock and we just started, so I'll see if I can find this because it's fabulous. It's a story written by a 12th century woman author uh, who is who's who's embellishing on Aesop's fables. I mean, she's like one of the biggest authors in France back then, and she writes this short story, this fable, tiny story, called "The Lion and the Man Disputing." A man and a lion were arguing about who was best, with each one seeking evidence in support of his claim. They came to a tombstone on which the man was shown in the act of strangling a lion, and the man offered this picture as evidence. The lion then replied, "It was a man who painted this. If a lion painted, you would instead see a lion strangling a man. But let's look at some real evidence instead." The lion then brought the man to the amphitheater and showed him so that he could see with his own eyes just how a lion strangles a man. The lion then concluded, "A pretty picture is not proof. Facts are the only evidence." I mean, to me, that's just delicious. Here's someone struggling with language, trying to figure out, okay, what's the relationship between real and imaginary? And the story is ironic because it's also fiction. It's not real evidence. It's a fable. So you get this now in some movies that make the case that we should be paying attention to the real world, not movies. There are a few like this. I'm thinking of one right now that you probably wouldn't have seen. It was called Avalon. It was beautiful. It was done years ago about my people, about the Jews who came over the turn of the century. And by the end of it, you've got the patriarch of the family in a nursing home, and the kid is paying no attention to the patriarch because he's watching TV. What is that? That's a movie about the importance of getting out and not just looking at movies. And you've got that all the way back in this story a while ago. So anyway, these have been full days with that. It's been full days with thinking about how to deal with MAGA people. I've had 4 new insights in the last little while. I've started to turn them into animations, not very good animations, but they're animations nonetheless. MAGA Mike is back at it, and I would like to do one. I'm still trying to figure out how to do this, which is a fallen MAGA person, or could be anything, could be a fallen Christian, Mormon, whatever, Muslim, whatever. It could be me, even with my commune experience, reflecting on what was going on with him back then. What was really going on with him? But I am loving the medium of MAGA Mike because he's doubly clueless. He's so clueless that he doesn't recognize that he is giving away his game. He's giving away his own cluelessness. And the responses to it are still fascinating. Mostly, I wish I was getting more right wingers who would say this or that, or MAGA people. I get some. I got one the other day that inspired something just now. A response. Someone who said the standard line. You've heard it many times before. Yeah, that's what the left does, or the left does that too. Um, and my response, still working on, I just wrote this 5 minutes ago. It's a human thing. I do it too. I wonder if you think you don't. And what's your point anyway? Are you saying that since we all do it, it's fine? Are you saying that the left does it more? Are you saying since the left does it, it proves you don't? Or are you just aping a cliche? I know you are, but what are my talking points so you don't have to think about it anymore about it? All of that. So anyway, I'm here if you've got any questions, critique, challenges, things on your mind. The whole point of this is, um, well, to offer. I've I've grown most when I've had a role model who demonstrated that something I was inclined to do was okay to do. I'm not someone who believes you can, pay no attention to what others do. I'm a social critter. I pay attention to what others think of me, or what others think of how I spend my life. And so there's a kind of value for me in precedent. Now, I also recognize that that value is dangerous. I've talked to many women, some of them clients, who are recognizing in their partners or ex-partners a tendency to act like Trump. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's the problem, is once you meld that, once you put that out into the world, once you expose that, once you afford people that precedent, you can indulge in it. But in a way, I'm trying to do that too. There's a way in which my entire life is consumed with curiosity, next questions, answers that are springboards to next questions, this intellectual incompleteness that I find so satisfying that it has, even to some degree, not completely, upstaged my need to figure out who loves me. Um, and I just find it fun. I find it fruitful in a world where, well, I could say it's easy to get jaded on other things. Um, when I was growing up, the 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 TV was uh, was scant. It wasn't rich like it is these days. And now you can watch the greatest shows over and over and over, and just you've got access to media too cheap to meter, and you're also overwhelmed with things you could be studying or learning. But if you can find a hook, if you can find a life-size question, for me, a big one is what the actual fuck we are. Um, and then turn that into a reason why. It's like brain Velcro. It's like you got a coat rack, you got a place to hang things. I could never get through the books I read if it weren't for the questions that are really living in me. They're my non-spiritual yet very spirited path. Um, and so most folks can't afford this life. I can afford it. I'm lucky that way. Uh, but people can afford some of it. And so when I ask you what's on your mind, or what you're thinking about, or what's been, if you've had thoughts in the last few weeks, um, let me know. We can talk about them, and we can explore them together, because that is my jam, and to me, it's the ultimate jam. I'd even go so. The reason I'm able to let go of gigging, I was gigging a lot. Like, if I didn't gig in 2 weeks, I felt a little thirsty for it. I think the reason I let go is because I have these curiosities that keep me satisfied with my dissatisfaction with the answers I've got so far. So I'm not seeing any comments yet, but I just want you to know, please, anything, and I will drop whatever I'm rambling about. In order, I keep on looking at the text. I should look at the screen. Here comes something. Donna, y'all need to click the like button. You're Trumpy if you don't. There you go. Show me you like me. Show me you like me. Um, no, there's a thing. I can do this. The I'm delighted to see I can do this. I put out a video yesterday about a new insight I had the day before, about a video I'd made the day before that. And I was so excited to put it out, and I gussied it up. I even did a little bit more of the production values you're supposed to do. And I put it out, and this morning I went to see what I got: 150 views. At this time last year, I was getting 3 orders of magnitude more than that. I think I calculated that right. I was getting 150,000 views. What's happened to my audience? I probably warned them all out, especially by saying, you do it too. We all do it. But I will go at it again today. It's the questions and the curiosity that gets me going. I wonder how safe I am as a woman to address MAGA in person or online. Oh, JC, I mistook you for a different JC we have. Thank you for that question. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Uh, I'm guessing. I mean, I wish you could say more about it so I could understand what that's like for you. Uh, my version's I would not compare my situation to a woman's. I can only imagine a woman's situation. And I try, um, and all of the challenges that go with it. Um, uh, our answer on all of these questions of what you should do is it's a repertoire, not recipe. That is, there's no formula. It depends on who you're talking to and all of that. If you're doing it online, of course, you could pose as a man. That would be easy enough. I also would love to do a makeover video for MAGA men, just like the female influencer makeover videos, but this would be about me getting all dressed up in my bulletproof vest and my fatigues and all of that, and but equally gay. I'd want to do that. And there is last night I thought there's a wonderful guy I should talk to about this. This is a flamingly gay guy who teaches in all earnestness. I wonder if you've seen this. Teaches on YouTube how to get the look of the Trump celebrity women, and he's really serious about it. And he's clearly not a Trumpist, but at the same time, that's not in there. He's just trying to show it. So I want to do the male version of that. In the meantime, on your question, this is all riskier work than we used to think we'd ever have to do. I think this is a major problem for us progressives or Democrats or whatever you want to call us, the anti-MAGA people, is that we really let our fighting skills atrophy, on the sense that if we all let our fighting skills atrophy, then there'd be no fighting. That's not how it works. When a large crowd of people become gentle and trusting, then they become easy marks for rough people and all of that. So, okay, I'm not a woman, but I'm Jewish by descent. As a race, I'm Jewish, and I'm vicious online, and somewhat in person as well. Um, uh, when I get a chance to talk to a Trumpist, I'm blunter than might be completely safe. There's a lot of memes about how, silence is the sin, and the silence will, letting this stuff go, but very little talk about how to do it. So one thing I would say, JC, is if you're interested in that, and I don't know which JC you are, join us tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. These are people, including plenty of women, who are trying to figure out how to most skillfully talk to Trumpists. It's a hard art, figuring out how to engage with people there's no talking to, how to humbly humble humans who will say or do anything to avoid human humility. It's got to be done with core strength. You really need to know where you're coming from, or they'll knock you off balance. That's the point that's like central for me these days. But good, you do know this guy. Yes. Kyle, you know this guy. He is awesome, Donna. Yeah. Um, I deal with this with my private clients as well. These are people who are dealing at close range with someone who they find overpowering. And some of these are people in very prominent positions, very successful, competent people, who still are thrown off. They get defensive. They basically can be led by the nose by the person they find overpowering them. Some of that is a vocational hazard of their particular skills. They are detail-oriented people and therefore will get lost in the details of some debate with an overpowering person. But you really need to know where you're coming from. And I'm very clear on where I'm coming from with the Trumpists. I'm not trying to persuade them to believe what I believe. I don't think, I mean, I suppose it'd be nice, but it's not where I'm focused. I'm focused on getting them to introspect just enough that they become decent folk. By whatever standard, there's lots of ways to be a decent person. Okay, Donna, that's different. I would love to see you join our study group. So let me just do the advertisement for it. It happens every other weekend, every other Sunday morning at 9 o'clock California time. I guess that would be what, 11 o'clock your time, maybe. It's free. All I need is your email address. I will not share your email address with anybody. It's online. People often show up and don't say anything, or show up and don't show their face. But it's a conversation among people all over the country who are dealing with MAGA people. And what they do is they bring in things they've tried. And I bring in new ideas I've been trying. And we critique them. We figure out how to make them as effective as possible. So my basic assumption is that these guys are wusses who have, no, I don't want to say that. My basic assumption is that they've gotten into the habit of playing hero, hiding behind that, and that kryptonite for them is introspection. That is, to see themselves doing what they're doing is something they avoid at all costs. So when someone says, the left does it too, or the left does it more, that's someone trying to avoid looking at themselves. And I did put out a video this last week on exactly that subject as well, the whole question of introspection. Hey, Michael, good to have you here. And MZ as well. Great to have you here. So introspection is kryptonite to an absolutist, and their superpower is avoiding it. So what am I trying to do in an engagement with them? I'm trying to get them to introspect a little bit. I don't want to be leaning in to try to get them persuaded of my point of view. I think it depletes my power. My power comes from standing clear in who I am, and while they have mostly, a Trumpist, Donna, has dismissed anyone who disagrees with them as not worth listening to. I'm trying to somehow get through their spiked suit of armor, whether to coax out the human being or to poke them ruthlessly. And some combination often. I do a lot of what I call carrot sticking, where I'm really sweet to them and tearing their arguments to shreds, not in terms of facts. No, I don't think it's about facts. I don't think it's about beliefs. I don't think they have beliefs. I think it's a feeling thing. And I am basically from a neutral core trying to simply exposing what they look like to me. Good, Michael. I'm glad you liked that video. It was fun to make. I was going off to get a blood test, and the thought suddenly occurred to me, wait, these three actually fit rock, paper, scissors. Once again, that's the joy of this weird life I live, this lifestyle where you just, doesn't matter where you are, you always got these questions humming along in the background. And so I could be doing whatever, grocery shopping, and suddenly I'll get some new idea. As I was driving back from Portland, I was texting. I did get a ticket, but for speeding, not for texting. I was texting just quick notes to myself as I was speed listening to these books of things I wanted to turn into articles and videos and all of that. So it's especially nice when you use the social media as your intuition pump. It keeps on pumping ideas because you pretend you've got an audience for it, or you act like you got an audience, what I call strategic gullibility. I've been doing that for a long time. There's this 87-year-old buddy I've got, a philosopher, fabulous guy, in ill health, as one might be at 87. And I had to say to him the other day, you have been my muse for years. It's like show and tell. It's like, oh, good, I found something new to talk to him about. What a service that is when someone can do that for you. And if they don't do that, so I'm thanking you for doing that service for me. You are my muses. I come up with ideas and I think about, oh, I get to share that with Kyle. I get to share that with Donna. I get to share that with Louise and Michael. And it's so that's kind of, that's what I'm suggesting here. So anyway, Donna, please, if you're not already on the email list, email me. And here's one reason why. We need your insights. I live in fucking Berkeley, California. I have to work so hard to have any exposure to a Trumpist. It does not come naturally or easy to me. Um, so here you are surrounded by them. Whenever I find someone who is in that position, we need you. I need to hear from you. I need to hear what it's like on the ground with these people. Um, I collect those people as I can, uh, not just the Trumpists, but the people who are in contact with them, and know them, and are friends with them, uh, because one can be a complete Trumpist and a totally decent person on the side. It's mostly a hobby for folks. And I'm trying to get them to find better hobbies than that. That's what a lot of my work is about. So just to get them introspective enough to figure out that the masturbation that they're doing in the circle jerk in the public square would be better served watching pornography or playing video games or something like that. Self-love is important, but get a room. Don't let it go to your head. Zip up after, and don't turn basic infrastructure into your circle jerk vanity project. Okay, I couldn't talk to Trump supporters until I learned how my own cognizant about your own cognitive. This is great. Learned about your own cognitivism to actually understand them, not to climb into their saddle. I think I understand what you're saying as this. Um, it's been really an important theme to me lately. You got to get your need for affirmation out of the way. Thank you, Donna. Thank you. We need you. Um, we have lost 10 years to trying to prove our worth. I think that's the high we got into in the 80s, 90s, 2010s, was a sense that we represented virtue and and uh, and and that we represented all of the virtues. So we were non-judgmental, and we were kind to everyone, and we were honest, and we were realistic, and you just count them all, just accumulate them all, because you can do that in the abstract when you're not actually confronted by trade-offs. And so we got kind of spoiled on a sense of ourselves as the worthy ones, as the good guys. And then come along all these interesting challenges, and with them, cognitive and emotional dissonance. I think cognitive dissonance is uh, it's an okay name, but doesn't get to the heart of it. The heart of it is that doubt, ambiguity, ambivalence makes us uncomfortable in our own skin. I mean, I wrote a book called Doubt, a User's Guide. I could take a tax right off every time I doubt, every time I'm uncertain. I mean, it's my profession is studying doubt. I hate the shit. I don't like it any more than you do. I mean, I don't like to be kept up at night wondering and worrying and cycling the options, none of them sufficiently satisfying, all of them iffy. I hate that stuff. So to understand it, once again, to recognize, manage, exercise, uh, turns out to be kind of my theme. To name it is to tame it. This whole business about recognizing my own ambivalence, um, and how much that helps me ground myself in on the rocky surfaces. Uh, that is, I'm grounding myself in a wobbling state to recognize it. It makes me more comfortable with my discomforts, is what I'm talking about here, and 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 it also makes me more strategic. Here's an unrelated example, except for me. All It's not just that I don't pay attention to lifestyle brands, left, right, all that sort of stuff. It's also I don't pay attention to this being politics, this being romance, this being work life. I'm paying attention to human nature as it manifests in whatever realm. So here's an example. For the longest time, I was having a hard time finding a compatible partner, romantic partner, back when I was in the dating world. And I remember where I was. I was in my own kitchen alone, and it just occurred to me, wait, the problem isn't finding a compatible partner. It's that I'm internally incompatible about what I wanted in a partner. I wanted a partner who was my equal. I wanted a partner who I felt completely safe with, which meant that I wanted a partner who was subordinate, who wanted me more than I wanted her. Okay, well, so if I got in the world with that cognitive dissonance unexplored, unrecognized, unlearned, what am I going to get? I'm going to get dissatisfaction no matter how you cut it. Um, I haven't thought of this before, but in a way, I recognize the same thing later in that I wanted to be partnered, but then again, when I was partnered, I was restless. I was talking to a woman the other day who had exactly the same experience, and it's interesting. Women are finally in a position to admit to this sort of thing. This is a woman who was hadn't been partnered more than a few years at a time, and she said no. She admitted she'd get bored, so she was kind of like always on the wrong side of every door. Um, to recognize that stuff is really helpful because then you can start to be strategic about it. So, and you can say in general, what's going on for me is um, I want to feel comfort in my own skin. I want to figure out what's really true. I want to be hopeful. I want to be realistic. They are often at odds. And if I don't admit that to myself, I become, um, well, I'm stunted. And I'm also a pain in the ass, at least to a guy like me. When I'm sitting with someone who can talk about their cognitive dissonance, I can listen for hours. If I'm sitting with someone who's expressing their cognitive dissonance, but denying it and saying that I must be trying to trick them for saying that they're of two minds, I got 5 minutes. I can't stand that stuff. I can't stand it when people offload their doubt onto me rather than owning their fair share of it. Okay, I was at my in-laws this week, surrounded by 7 Trumpers. Good, we need to hear from you about this. I just stayed silent. They made a few of their remarks, but nothing directly towards me or asking my views. So I just didn't take the bait. Michael, I hear that, and you probably have heard my response to that. Um, uh, I I recognize that. I do that some too. It's part of the repertoire, going silent. It's also part of how you manage the repertoire given uh, 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 circumstances. That is, I was at my daughter's wedding last Saturday, and I was surrounded by Trumpers too, because my daughter married a guy who's from a rural Mormon family in in Oregon. No, I didn't bring it up either. My daughter asked me not to. I um I licked one of their cheeks though. I was playful, and that was enough to shock my daughter. This was her new mother-in-law who is married, but we've had Trump debates before, she and I. And the kids finally asked me to stop being her Facebook friend because we were going at it there, and I was fine with it. And the kids are way more aligned with me. That is my daughter and her ex-Mormon husband. But this is the carrot sticking thing. So we were taking a picture together, and I kissed her cheek, and then I went a step over the line and licked her cheek playfully for a second. She was fine with it. You connect where the connecting's good. You find the valences in the other person, and you connect there, and you play. I'm just playing this out in my head. I haven't thought about this before, but my whole approach to making friends and why I don't mind losing them when I do, as much as some might, is that I make friends easily. But how do I do it? By playing the edge. I'm not sitting in the comfort zone, the small talk comfort zone. I'm seeing how far into human I can get them to be. And I mostly do it by playing goofball, like Jughead or Kramer, or I don't know if you remember this guy from no, probably not, from the 50s, Maynard G. Krebs. It's a character that gets played. They have a role in drama as well. They're kind of an outsider in how human they are. They're kind of raw, not not refined. And so I'll play that role. And then I gave a toast that wowed people, but I'm playing both edges. I want to, You might have to deal with this, Donna or Michael or anybody, depending on where you are. There's a way in which I have this client in Tennessee. He's an engineer by day, very mainstream, but his mind's on fire. The guy's on fire. So you have to work out how he's gonna be among his people in Tennessee. He's frustrated by how dumbed down the conversation gets. He craves this curiosity stuff. He basically pays me to talk philosophy, whatever's on his mind. And because he doesn't have much of that in his life, and yet part of what he's trying to cultivate in himself is a way to be skillful at dropping little tidbits of connection in, human to human. And even if you don't, so not taking the bait is a good start, but also not taking the bait, but still engaging with them. My theme in all this work is don't debate them. They're just masturbating to you taking the bait. Call them on that instead. Well, you didn't want to call these 7 people on that instead at this party, but there is a way of teasing about it. It's why I think wit is so useful to this work. It's why I'm fascinated by dialogue in good movies where someone is able to play that role. They're snaking through the civility and they're finding little places to connect with people and be real. It's my version of what a gentleman is these days. Is a gentle person. I don't mean men, but it's the capacity to maximize the tact of your honesty, or at least to play with those two as close as you can, recognizing that you have to be tactful and that there are things so honest things you could say that no matter how tactfully you said them, they would still hit wrong. Um, so there's a whole skill to figuring that I am trying to cultivate in myself. And I'm not doing bad at it. I started doing it because I wanted to win women. Um, and women would fall in love with me through their ears. But it turned into its own thing. It took on a life of its own. And it's basically wit. Wit is about how to be honest and at the same time as tactful as possible. Um, uh, I think that's the point I missed from what you said, Michael. Not to climb on their saddle. So yeah, we're right there, which is I want to get them off their high horse, which takes some introspection. They have to, either they would get off of it because they introspected, very unlikely, or they would be yanked off it and be forced to introspect. But one way or another, they'd end up off there. But I do not want to mount the steed in their stead. And this is where we lost 10 years. And this is why it's been useful for me to watch all the leftists react to MAGA Mike as though he's for real. It's impotent. The shit they say at the shit we say at the Trumpists. It sounds like we want their high horse instead. I'm not going to compete for a high horse. We're humans. So it's great that you're also wondering after the fact. They have that French term I ought to memorize for the speech of the stairs. It's what you think you should. It's what you remember, what you wonder what you decide you should have said in some interaction as you're walking upstairs to bed. If someone could look it up, it's a great French term. But no, that's what prompts me. That all the time. Not only are my answers, but my failures are springboards to next questions. So I'm thinking, okay, in that interaction, what could I do? This is a form of woodshedding. It's a form of rehearsing or practicing for a jam session. So you're going to go out and jam with some other people, and you want to learn from what happened wrong in the last session, or you want to be maximizing what you could be doing. That's all. And that's basically all the study group is too. It's just people trying to figure out, okay, I said that worked okay. What else could I have said? What could have been more powerful? That sort of thing. Exactly. I chose silence instead of just trying to mount their high horse. Good. I get that. But the next step for you and me is what to say instead. And once again, this is where the strong core comes from. If you know where you're coming from and you're not leaning in to prove yourself by proving something to them, then that's where the casual observation comes in. I've been paying attention to the varieties of ways in which people do that in, for example, movie dialogue. Um, uh, these are phrases, these are common phrases like, so you say, or that's what you believe, or there's a variety of ways that create a little distance and show that you're seeing them from a different perspective than the one that they're seeing themselves from. So, for example, this video I put out this week, it was scripted. I seem to be scripting a few more these days, but this was this thing about introspection and what it is, and it's not one thing, and why it's hard to get a narcissist to introspect. So, what a MAGA person will be doing. Yeah, I'll repeat this on the off chance you haven't seen it, since the views were fairly low. Imagine you're in high school and you've got a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and you see each other across the hall. And when you know that you're being seen, you put on your better look. You know, you show your best foot. You know, you make yourself look as good as possible. And not only that, since you're crushes, the person who's seeing it wants to see the better look. So that's kind of what puppy love is like. It's a mutual admiration society in which two people are flashing their best and want to see the best in each other. Well, what is a narcissist? It's a mutual admiration society of one. So that's what they're doing. They're flashing their best side and they're trying to see their best side. And what do you do with that? Well, you see other sides. You see the full human package. You don't condemn it. So it's not only getting them off the high horse, but not demoting them into the dirt. It's demoting them to the elevated status of human. And so for that, you need a combination of demoting and elevating, which is why I think I'm drawn to carrot sticking. All these are new thoughts that I'm having just now, but it's why I'm so loving to a Trumpist I talk to every few weeks who I'm also just carving him a new ass. I mean, I'll tear into not what he believes, but how he shops among interpretations. This is a guy who considers himself highly, highly rational, because he can make a rational argument for anything he believes, which is, to me, nothing impressive. Anybody can do that. But because he can make a logical argument for what he believes, that's all he feels he needs. And I'm really sweet with him, and he's really hooked. He really loves our conversations. I've had some Trumpists who love our conversations because they're trying to figure out how to beat me. Then that's fine. But if that's all they're doing, it's not as interesting. This guy's actually interested. He's an interesting combination of receptive and unreceptive. He's successful, which also makes it complicated, because people who are successful tend to generalize that they can do no wrong. That's a standard kind of nouveau riche move. Okay, let's see where we are. They are humans that are scared and lost and clinging onto a cult until the next safe train picks them up. I agree. I also want to make this distinction. It's complicated. It comes out in this last video I just put out. I've said it many times before. So one version of it is that these are people who are scared because they had traumatic childhoods or really had rough lives, and that way they have they've been traumatized and therefore unusually scared, and this is just their compensation for a chip on the shoulder. That's a standard explanation, and it certainly plays out. There's lots of that. Lots of that in the world, but that's not the only way one becomes an asshole. And it makes them look too pitiable for my taste, um, for two reasons. First of all, many assholes are just spoiled. They've gotten away with it for a long time. There's as many assholes, if not more, who had pampered childhoods, helicopter parents who tolerated a lot or whatever, or another version which completely benign and yet with major consequences is, let's say you're a kid who's played a lot of video games and had parents who were so distracted and busy that they didn't pay much attention to them and they got good at video games. Congratulations, that takes work. I'm not good at video games. But it gives them the false impression that they are soldiers or successes or victorious in the real world. And then they go out in the real world and all they can find is a fast food job. Um, is that it's certainly not a traumatic story about them being deprived of love or something. So that's one reason why I'm skeptical about the idea that they're just scared. The other has more to do with the consequences, which is um, it it's fun to be an asshole if you can get away with it, and if you get in that habit, it's just fun and satisfying. And I think we got to get much better at admitting that about it. For me, to tell people that being an asshole is no fun is like trying to get people to stop eating pizza by telling them it doesn't taste good. It just doesn't work. It makes you feel good, like you're too pure for any of that, but it doesn't work. In the meantime, the consequences are terrible. It's maybe it's like trying to get people to stop taking heroin by telling them that it doesn't feel good. That's absurd. Yeah, in the long run, heroin doesn't feel good, perhaps. You might die in bliss, but it feels good. And we have to kind of admit that it's tempting for any of us. So however you've tumbled down into assholia, whether it's because there was a good, clean, safe path for you through a pampered childhood, or whether you were traumatized and it was your only route out, whatever, the costs of it are high, the benefits of it to the individual are high, and that's the predicament I have to deal with. So I don't want to just say they're scared, and I certainly don't want to go from they're scared. I'm not suggesting, MZ, that you're doing this, but I am saying that this is something I see and I have to mention. Um, that because they're scared, the strategy is compassion. It might be. Compassion might be the way through, but it isn't always. And sometimes other things are more effective. So, as I say in the video on rock paper scissors, I think I say repertoire, not recipe, but the repertoire I boil down to three basic moves, which are assert, accommodate, leave, and all sorts of varieties of them. Um, and if I think of them as scared, as some people do, and therefore say be nice to them, I'm basically playing into one of their habits in this cycle they play, which is be nice to me. I mean, the quantity of Trumpists who act like they are brave, and then as soon as you say something to them that challenges them, they want to scold you before not being nice. I mean, it's just a hoot. But that's one of their standard moves, and I don't want to play into it. And I have, frankly, too many friends who do want to play into it. If you just connect, they'll connect with you. I don't think so. Sometimes. Okay, some of them are the kind that just won't take no for an answer. And with them, we just have to get better at saying no and standing by it. I agree with that. Yeah. Saying no. See, we've lost in these 10 years trying to prove ourselves the virtuous ones, which worked in earlier decades, just isn't working now. We lost so much ground. We say no and stand by it, and they ride roughshod over us. We lost that much power. In the meantime, so this is back to Donna's question. or Donna's, yeah, Donna's quandary. Um, how much no do you say to them? How much do you not take the bait? Um, how much pushback can you give? I don't feel like I've got any kind of handle on what's going on with the juggernaut that is the MAGA movement at the high levels. I'm not very interested in, I mean, I monitor closely what's going on in their juggernaut, in their move to dismantle the government. But I don't spend any time on, well, if I were in charge of the Democratic Party, because I don't think I have that kind of power or leverage. Um, yes, sometimes I wish that one of them would find my work because I think they're still missing the point about what these guys are doing. Um, but I also don't think I know enough about what goes on at that level of government to know. And I'm also grateful to see Gavin Newsom saying no's that he can implement. Remember, uh, I raised some wayward kids, and there's a point where you say no and you stand by it, and they still ride roughshod over you. Um, and every time you lose one of those, every time, what is it? That which doesn't make them doesn't kill their behavior makes it stronger. So that's a real problem we're dealing with. But for me, it's mostly the one-on-one at this point. I'm really interested in that. Partly because it's a place where I feel like I could have some leverage, partly because I think that's where the leverage is. We are going, the Trumpists are bound to start to see problems with it. Um, have you wondered about this? It's been fascinating to me. We live in a society where we need new, intense, surprising experiences all the time. We crave novelty. And yet you got these people who went for a fad in a way that seems of a different era, where they're listening to the same damn thing over and over. Well, I have a basic theory about that, which is whenever someone listens to the same thing over and over, or listens or watches the same thing over and over, they're probably doing it primarily for the affirmation of it. Masturbation would be an example. If you watch the same kind of porn over and over, that's fairly repetitive. But yeah, there's hormones involved and all that. But at the same time, yeah, I'm thinking that's reaffirmation that we all need, and you're just basically milking it. When someone tells the same story about their victimhood or something, that would be another example of that milking. It's incredibly boring. I don't know if you've ever seen the early videos by the Good Liars. They're great, and their early work was astonishing. They show up at this small presentation by Trump at a country club or something like that, and they show up dressed as real enthusiasts, and they start out cheering, and they and Trump acknowledges them in the crowd, um, and kind of appreciates how much flattery he's getting from them, and then he starts talking. He starts to tell a story, and Trump is reading a letter he got from a grateful country club friend, and the guys start to say, "Like, this is boring." You're boring, you're boring. And the crowd freaks out and they swift these guys off. But Donna, that's edgy work. I don't know if you're a woman and you can do it, but those guys are good that way. They're guerrilla that way. Um uh so anyway, yeah, I don't know where I was with that. My point was it's incredibly boring. Um uh let's see. Some of them won't take so and they're also winning. So anyway, the question of how to say no. And, and part of it is just, "Nope, I don't buy it." Mm, you be you, but to me, it's laughable. All the way out to, you I mean, for me, it's often, it's like, "You be you," but from my perspective, you just look like you're wanking in public. It's that kind of thing, or it's something like it. Anyway, let's see. I'm also wondering, the person I'm listening to or talking to is neurodivergent, high functioning auto, yeah, especially with Trumpers. What are your thoughts on this? Thank you. That's a great question. Some might be. I don't know if it changes my strategy with them. Um, and, to extent we're all neurodivergent or culturally divergent, yeah, I know there are radical differences. I've had some recent encounters where, um, I miss who I mistook you for. That song I'm still plan to write someday, has come to mind, like, "Oh my god, this is a really different mind-body configuration. This person's" um, I was way off about them. Um, I've also had situations recently where, based on my initial assessment, I thought a line would work, and it's exactly the opposite of what would work. Um, and I only discovered afterwards. So this is once again about reflecting on what I could have done different, learning from it, not saying, well, that should have worked, but actually thinking about it. But in the meantime, I'm just trying to figure out where people are coming from. One thing to look for, I think, no matter who you're talking to, is um, what is their confidence currencies? What are they trading in? I mean, we all need our reassurance from something. What aspects of themselves are their load-bearing aspects, such that, that they're getting their rewards from it, they feel good about themselves? Remember, this is a really big theme for me lately, which is, um, we don't fall in love with other things, we fall in love with how we feel around those other things, or we don't fall in love with other people necessarily as much as well, the way I put it is, you gotta factor in how much of your love for a belief or Trumpism or a person is that you love how you feel about yourself in that person's presence. So that's about the confidence currencies. So if you can figure out what someone's confidence currencies are, you can figure out how to interact with them. And um, so a MAGA person's confidence currency comes from dismantling our nation. That's one of them. But that may not be the core currency. That may be what they're trading in this week, and before they were trading in something else, or this decade. But they certainly need some confidence, and that's why it's really important to affirm them where you can. Um, uh, that is, you want to be honest in what you affirm. You can flatter and pander to some extent, but you don't want to just blow smoke up their ass. So, but if you can get them paying attention to some other currency, I'm just thinking about this right now. I haven't thought it out, and soon to be a minor motion picture. But if you can do that, you've got a better handle on them, no matter what neurodiversity they've got going on, no matter who they are. Um, just trying to figure out what makes them like themselves. And in a way, this business about trying to get them off their high horse, but you know, not grind them into the ground, is about getting them a better, healthier source of confidence than Trumpism. And I've talked to heroin addicts who said the hardest problem with people who finally got off of it, who said the hardest problem with getting off heroin is that there's nothing to upstage it. Nothing feels as good as it. And, I draw this connection between herobotic habits and heroin. That is, they both make you feel like a hero no matter what. So this is maybe the challenge I need to pay more attention to. What is going to get these guys off on themselves more than Trumpism? And one way you could even frame it is, dude, I know you've been revving for the last 10 years on Trumpism, but that drug's going to start to not work so well for you. You can get jaded on it. And not only that, it's one of those drugs with a bunch of side effects, like the cost of eggs. So I need my I Jones for affirmation, just like you, my friend. But I'm worried this can't end well for you. If I mean, you just end up being, try and get yourself high on seeds and stems. I'm mixing drug metaphors here, but this isn't going to work out. You got to find something. What's next? What's next? What's going to carry you through? The dream with any of these drugs, like heroin or religion or MAGA, is happily ever after. that you have found the thing that will reaffirm you forevermore. So these are not people who can imagine Trump dying or the movement snuffing out on a brain fart. That's not in their awareness any more than it was in mine when I was a flower child hippie and I thought that only of the day of victory and the happily ever after. I, I, I couldn't foresee the inevitable decline, decay, the fall back into human nature that happens to any movement and happens especially to movements that feel like they have seen the light. So that's an interesting new angle on it for me. Thinking about, okay, I'm talking about methadone for heroin addicts. And methadone, my son was telling me about it just the other day. Um, uh, it's not a high. It's a disappointment. It keeps the lows away, but it doesn't actually give you the high. Um, what's your next thing? And can you make it something a little bit more sustainable than MAGA? Nah, you would never talk to them that way. But that's what I'm doing there is I'm practicing what a core would be. And then you figure out, given their hooks, how you would speak from that core. But it's basically what I've been saying all along. That the business about self-love is important, but get a room. Um, it's basically years ago when I was in intense grief over the loss of a girlfriend who was a source of intense affirmation for me at a time when I was really thirsty for it. I thought of creating a company called Let Go Travel. And what it would do is it would tailor trips for people who had just lost their source of affirmation. And they would go out and see the larger world. You would tailor trips. I had a buddy at the time who ran the entire American version of Cook's Travel, which is the oldest travel company in the world. He's a wild fellow who so yeah, I was thinking about travel agencies at the time. He designed these custom trips for wealthy folk. But anyway, let go travel. How do you let go of um, uh, a source of affirmation that is no longer working for you? Um, what do you do next? What can you upstage it? How close can you get to upstaging it? The more you can upstage it, the less jonesing, the less the easier the cold turkeying would be. That's my sense of it. Um, yeah. What makes them like themselves? That's all I'm talking about with a confidence currency. What makes them okay with themselves, but more than okay. People don't want to feel okay. They want to feel exceptional. You need a margin of affirmation, for rainy days. I'll take all the affirmation I can get. Is basically what we humans say. No one leaves it on the table. So if you stumble on something like Trumpism, which was so inexpensive, you buy a fucking hat. You start complaining about other people's behavior. Um, you selectively cherry pick the Bible to make sure it's nothing you have to do differently. It's all compromise for other people, like abortion or gay marriage. Um, it's such and boy does it pay off in your sense that you've solved reality and get to tutor the world, and it makes the shy brave and all of that. This is a hard high to give up. And once again, it's got nothing to do with. Do you watch the Finding the Money document? Oh, Michael, I started to watch it, and I owe it to you. So, I started to watch it. Answer me this: will it detail the something we've overlooked that is going to cost us seriously? If it does, I'm definitely going to watch it nonetheless. I watch anything you send me as long as it's not too long and not too off. What I mean is I wouldn't watch everything, but I would watch. I I respect it enough to catch that. In the meantime, know that I am paying more attention to these questions than the details of how fucked we are. So I'm trying to avoid um, I'm not trying to avoid it, but I'm not putting much emphasis into the doom scrolling detailing, and I'm not putting the much attention to the scorn scrolling uh, details. Which would be another part of it, which is that the vast majority and of far more popular videos than mine online are basically still just doing that. It's just scornography. It's like, do you see this shit that the Trumpists did today? See, this just shows that that they're assholes. I'm spending less time on that, but I would still want to know about this currency issue. So let me know a yes or no if it's mostly, oh God, we aren't even paying attention to this problem either. And then I'll know how to watch it. And I promise by the time we talk next, no, not if you show up at the meeting tomorrow, I won't have it watched by then. You know what I'm watching these days? That I strongly recommend if you haven't seen it is The Boys. You've all seen The Boys, right? Has everybody seen The Boys? The Boys is a series. It's four seasons, going into its fifth. It's an allegory of Trump, and that was exposed later on than its production. There were a bunch of Trumpists. It was very MAGA Mike. It was a bunch of Trumpists were enthusiastic about it until they figured out that Homelander was Trump. And then so I had watched it spottily and therefore not with all the continuity, and now I'm rewatching it again and finding it fabulous. It's also produced by the cousin of a famous philosopher, Saul Kripke. So he came up with it. I'd love to understand their relationship. Kripke died a few years ago, but yeah, he was a logician, and so it's interesting to think about that pairing. Just as it's interesting to think about the pairing between Sacha Baron Cohen and his brother Simon Cohen. I don't know if you know those guys. Sacha Baron Cohen, you probably, of course, know, but Simon is a psychologist who came up with the concept of mind blindness, basically cluelessness, and saw it in psychopathy, and saw it in autism and others, and starts to talk about mind blindness and theory of mind. So here's a family that is making hay off of cluelessness between Sacha Baron Cohen and Simon. They're 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 students of cluelessness. Um, okay, so Michael, now I don't know what to say because I haven't watched it, but I'm going to, by gum, because I hate this situation. I was in it with a client a little while ago. He sent me an article that he thought was related to what he was talking about with one of these overpowering people in his life, and I didn't read it for 2 or 3 sessions. In those cases, I'm being paid. I finally got to it, but he asked me, "Did you read the article?" No, not yet. Not yet. It's not that I'm not reading, it's just that I'm reading on message so much. So I know what you do here. Perfect. I've got it. Michael, when you send me a documentary, this is all this is all right on message. The person I'm listening to, talking to, is neurodivergent. Everybody's got their confidence currencies. Everybody's got their questions. Everybody curious has got their questions. So when you send me something, tell me where the hook is on my hat rack. What does it pertain to? It's not enough to just say this is important. Say, look for the hook in the other person. For the hook in me. So, good. Okay, Michael. So do that with me, please. Email me. I'm going to put mine in here. Donna, are you still here? I don't know if you're still here, Donna, but I sure hope you are, enough to get my email here. There we go. Email me to join the study group. I hope you do, and anybody else as well. It's the more the merrier. We're having a great time in there. This study group's been going on for 2 years or so. No, for a year or so, and it's been fruitful. It's been fun. We're meeting all sorts of people. Okay, so let's see. Chaos and Hope. They filmed our family's story about how MAGA tore us apart, but was cut. Oh, interesting. MZ, can you send me about anything about that as well? I mean, just send me a link to it. Uh, I can take a note of it here, right here, 2020. But, yes, anyway, yeah, uh, I'll try to watch the stuff about it. And I think this is probably a good idea for me, but for everybody. You gotta figure out where people's hooks are, where you can connect with them. This came up. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It's one of my recent interactions with someone, and just it's also a good reason why you ask questions at the start of a friendship with someone, or at the start of a engagement with a Trumpist. First of all, if you ask it right and they're not rhetorical questions, I hate rhetorical questions. I turn all rhetorical questions into real questions. I mean, I probably don't. Why would I do that? He says rhetorically. Um, but I like to turn them into it. But I'm not talking about interrogating questions, but just trying to find out who the human is, starting with questions. And just what they're doing is they feel flattered that you're giving them attention, and you're finding out where their hooks are. It's a standard move in sales practices. Um, well, good. Apex, thank you for that. It, there's a real challenge in this work. You can see I'm all over the map, and not only that, I'm trying to connect everything up. So when I make short videos, I'm always leaving out stuff, and I'm always rushing through things, and probably end up making people feel like it's more abstract. To me, it's all familiar because I've been swimming in it for these many years. But for someone else, I try to compact a bunch of stuff down. So I'm glad to hear that. I plan to put out the next episode of that long form series in the next, maybe this weekend. I might get to it today. Um, but just to have space to say to taste things and take the time it takes to be careful with them. um I should just do that. I mean, there's a way in which I'm still chasing audience online by trying to be as succinct as possible, really short. um that's always been an issue for me in my writing. I mean, since my mind blew up with ideas. The first forum I went to was limericks because they were so short. So I would try to get a whole concept across in that format. Um, and it's not just me. Terry, my research colleague, has the same problem. He's got to write a 7,000 word essay on consciousness, and he's a neuroscientist, and he's got a very different approach to it that we should talk about sometime. It'll certainly show up in the long form videos. It's fascinating. It makes a huge difference in how we think about it, and I think it does explain it in a way that none of the other theories do. But he's got to he's always trying to figure out, he's got too many leads. He's got to say a bunch of different stuff just to people for people to even understand what he's trying to do by explaining consciousness in strictly physical terms. Um, so so I always have to sense that my audience is about to flee, because they got other things better to do, channel surfing and all that. And at the same time, I I have often been told that that's so abstract that people can't connect with it. I love that game. I love trying to figure out, uh, to deepen my understanding of something so it becomes more and more complex and intricate, and at the same time to try to figure out how to say it as simple and accessible as possible. For me, it's all flirtation and courtship. It's just happens to be intellectual. But I think I channeled my desire to be loved eventually into this work on trying to get ideas across. Vermin supremish. I'm trying to remember who that is. There's so yeah, that's kind of fun. Let's see. These types of psychology and biochemistry usually end up very Joe Rogan, and I like your efforts to tie it down and not let it get away. You're onto something really important to me. I keep on saying that, but that's because a lot of things like this are because we're having the conversation I wanted to have all these years. Um, we call it the gee whiz factor in biophilosophy. It's people who are wowed by thinking about the big picture. It's um, it's it was there in religion before. It's now there in Joe Rogan and all of those. I'm just trying to get my light a little better here, even though it's late to be doing this. Um, it's that whole Joe Rogan thing. There's a bunch of people who do it, and you just feel like a genius because you're dealing with these big questions. Um, for me, what happened is I started out there, and then I realized in succession, first about evolutionary psychology, then about complexity theory, that they weren't that I was getting an abundance, a cornucopia of explanations, but no way to really sort them out. And that was actually kind of a cheating fun about it for the people playing in it, is that you can pose your theory and you don't there's a chance it'll be the top contender, but there's no chance that it'll be ruined because you're talking in the abstract about big picture things and you can be wrong and it doesn't matter. So I got more and more into how do you keep it grounded, my efforts to tie it down and keep it tied down. Um, which kind of comes full circle here. If my question is what the actual fuck am I, I'm also ending up dealing with the people with the ways in which we don't want to know. One of my earliest quips was, no matter how hard I chase the truth, it will never catch me. I was noticing my attraction aversion. I really want to know. I really want to know what I am, but it damn well better be flattering. Um, I just want the truth, but it better be reassuring. Let the best plan win, but it better be mine. All of those tensions, which are there at the heart of humans. Heart and mind are a complicated tangle, and so yeah, that comes up. So, but while I was traveling, I just thought, no, this makes perfect sense what you did with your life. And this wasn't to reassure myself, it was just an observation as I'm swooning over this book. I'm reading people in the 1600s, 1700s, and then earlier than that for some, but at this point, I'm reading these people who are struggling to try to figure out what the actual fuck they are. And I have so much admiration for them for trying so hard, and I'm seeing where they tumble off into thinking they're just machines or thinking that they are ghosts, and I'm seeing the Christianity bearing down on them and how they got to be. They're trying to figure out what the actual fuck we are, and trying to keep their jobs, trying to stay in, alive in a world where they claim to already know what the actual fuck we are as God's children and souls. And one of the guys I read while I was in Mexico was Averroes, and God, does he blow my mind? This is a guy in the 12th or 1300s, calling out the limit. He's like, oh, the bravery of that guy. Back to Donna, and being mouthy at a time like this. He's in Islam. He's not in the Islamic world, but he's also got dealings with the Aristotelian scholastics who are trying to make sure that everything in Aristotle conforms to everything in the Bible and vice versa. These guys who finally got so frustrating that Francis Bacon calls them out, and that's the beginning of the scientific revolution, as we call it. But anyway, these people struggling to figure out what they are, having their own ambivalences about it, uh, kind of seeing the irony of what they're doing. The romantics are really interesting this way because they picture the ego as fundamental. They're basically going phenomenological, which means that you start with your experience, and then they see the world. They imagine that we're soon going to be able to figure out the vast wholeness of it all, and they're straining with that, and they're feeling heroic for being the crusaders who are going to really understand what they are, and they're also get distracted by their own self-romancing and all of that. Just to watch humans squirm and struggle to figure out what we are, it's just delightful to me. And to know that I'm in that lineage um of feckless humans trying to figure it out, and yet not willing to sit to rest on mystery as the answer. No, no resting spaces, just trying to get it clearer and clearer on it. And I wouldn't be able to do that without milking the heroic romanticism of it if I didn't have another source of heroism that I'm playing on, which is I think that this guy, Terry Deacon, who I've worked with for the last 28, 30 years, has got a new approach to it. In general, what we've been doing for the last many millennia is we say, there's got to be something added to matter to make it come alive. And then you get these guys will say, well, yeah, there's something added, but it's from another realm. So this is where you get dualism. And so they start to fill out what that other realm would be like. It's like, you know, imagine this magical, miraculous potion from somewhere else. It's like God's power, God's will, or soul, spirit, whatever. Or these days, information. You know, you talk about this thing that's out there that finally explains us. And then you get people cycling back and saying, wait a second, you're just making up shit, you know? So let's talk about what we really are. We're just matter. Just matter. And there is nothing to explain because all we are is atoms in motion. And then someone says, yeah, but we seem different. The living seem different than the non-living. What is that difference? And then someone comes up with another dualism. So Terry's doing something different. It's not teleodynamics with quantum field theory. Quantum field theory is another one of those dualisms at this point. That is, we don't know how it works, and we don't really fully understand it yet, and it doesn't explain anything about selves and trying. That's not what's going on at the quantum level. But teleodynamics is, if you frame it as a question, not an answer, but a question and a hunch or a hypothesis. But the question is, no, we only got the physical world. No dualisms. I don't even get to talk about information until I've explained interpretation, which is something only living beings do. So I got the physical world, and I've got to explain how life emerges within nothing but it. That's the job. And I'm not going to get distracted by pretending away selves and trying. And I'm not going to come up with some bullshit module that explains it, like information or soul or spirit or whatever. I have to actually explain it from the ground up. And in the process, what I'm saying is, for me, it's so much better than any of the things you'd get on Joe Rogan or any other spiritual. Because what are you doing? What are those guys doing? They're doing a kind of impressionistic. Well, it kind of looks like this. It kind of looks like that. Oh, look, I gave myself a thumb up. Kind of looks like this. Kind of looks like that. This is what we are. They're making shit up. If I really want to understand what I am, I have to understand me from the ground. And the ground isn't evolution. The ground is chemistry, and simple chemistry at that. So that's what I'm doing in that long form, and it goes all the way out. I mean, it is, I live and breathe this stuff. There's nothing else in my life. It not only took on a life of its own, but it took over my life. It's there in my interactions with the Trumpists. It's there when I lick my, what do you call it, parent-in-law's cheek. It's in me all the time. I'm doing this stuff. This is what I ended up doing. And I'm having so much fun with it. And so it's delightful when other people are having fun with it too. Okay, so we're almost done here. And I want to, let's see, is that right? Oh, I see. I started early, which says, okay, yeah, we're still almost done, unless people have something they want to hear about, anything at all. My daughter's wedding was fabulous. It was 30. It wasn't fabulous. It was 35 or 40 people. It was very modest and very sweet and delightful. Anybody got anything you want to talk about? Anything on your mind? See, the point here is not for me to just ramble, but for you to also be rambling in your own mind all the time, and then capturing stuff. Like a butterfly collector. You catch an idea that comes by, and you grab it in your net, and then you try to pin it down without killing it, or killing it if it needs to be killed. I had several ideas that I thought later, no, those are brain farts. It's a percentage game, though. If you start to feel like your percentage is good, you're more likely to hold on to whatever ideas come your way and see what's worth what's worthwhile about them. Um, let's see, here we go. William, nice to hear from you. Please don't end up wearing a rubber boot for a hat and promising free ponies to everyone. That's what he does. I really enjoy these talks. Just over my ability to grasp the desk without a rerun. Thank you, William. Thank you. Yeah, there's a way. I'm just thinking about my experience of that, just over my ability to grasp the depths. I certainly have that experience. It's interesting. So I got this, I work with Terry. He was a Harvard neuroscientist, and now he's a Berkeley professor of neuroscience and prominent. I mean, he's got stuff in there's what is it called? The Deacon's Law in neuroscience. But he's all over all these topics, and I'm admitting to him, this is maybe 20 years into our engagement, I'm admitting to him that I feel imposter syndrome sometimes. And he says, "Tell me about it." Tell me about it. He's he's also dealing with just over my ability to grasp. There is a difference though, and I think this might be something that makes it's the hook. The question is whether it's over your ability to grasp for now, but that you have general what they call self-efficacy, competence to feel like it's within your grasp, that you could get there. Um, I don't mean get to my truth. I mean understand what's being said enough that you can then play with it and figure it out. Um, I think that most people find the questions I'm dealing with unfamiliar, and they don't bet that they have the wherewithal, the appetite, aptitude, opportunity to deal with it, to actually be able to grok it. And once you have the sense, I mean, I think really all I'm running on is a sense that I got a few years ago that I'm entitled to play with this stuff. I'm competent enough to handle it. That may be a kind of master affirmation that keeps me milking this uh, confidence currency, is that I think I can handle it. Um, thirst for knowledge is never ending. I'm going to challenge that. I mean, as a something to aspire to or hope for in people, that would be nice. We talk about man's search for meaning. My impression is that man's search for meaning is limited, uh, just enough meaning. And what we mostly want is we're not looking for the meaning of life. We're looking to feel meaningful, to feel okay, exceptional, all of that. So the question for me then, because I don't simply assume that it's never ending, as Aristotle says, man is constantly curious. Uh, he starts something with that. I forget which. Um, how do you get someone hooked on it? How do you get someone hooked on? In my case, it's not knowledge so much. I don't actually don't know that much stuff. Um, Terry, for example, is incredibly encyclopedic. He took all the philosophy, all the science classes in college. He stayed in so long that they finally had to tap him on the shoulder. He'd been in the undergrad program for 8 years. He said, you could go on and get a PhD. So he went to Harvard and got a PhD. But by then, he had already internalized so much of the kind of knowledge or details, like chemical details, that I'm not good at that. I'm not especially good at that stuff. I'm getting better on it, hooked on curiosity. The question is, how do you get folks hooked on curiosity? And I think that's probably too much to ask of a Trumpist, but maybe it's not. I mean, curiosity about how to beat a video game would be a great alternative. They'd be doing their civil duty if they did that instead of what they're doing out playing Superman out in the public square. So understanding curiosity, I think we're onto something, William. The question is, how do you get that thirst? And also, when you're talking to someone, how do you find where their thirst is? One thing I've tried on know-it-alls occasionally is to ask them, to compliment them on all they know, and then ask them what are they still on the fence about. To actually make part of the way to brag be uncertainty, to recognize an uncertainty. What are your life size, what are your live questions is really what I'm asking them. And it's interesting because they'll often the standard response is, well, my live question is how to get more people to believe the truth that I sell, what the things I know. And I'm saying, no, not that question. I mean, what's something that you're still on the fence about? Um, how to make it look brave to deal with doubt is a really interesting question. And the thirst, I think, takes the form of doubt. Um, so for me, for example, like most kids, I came into school, into kindergarten, eaten up with curiosity, but I was, or thirsty, thirsty to understand. But the drinking from a fire hose and a lot of plain stuff. By the time I graduated from high school, let's say, I was kind of sort of saying, sorry, I asked. I wasn't that curious. It came back to me later. It came back to me because I got thirsty in my personal life. All of this I didn't start out saying, oh, I'm going to be an intellectual or I'm going to be a writer. None of that. I wouldn't have thought I had the capability. What happened was I encountered some personal cosmic wedgies that threw me off and threw me off of my pat spiritual answers. And I thought, okay, well, I could find another thing to be dogmatic about. People give up their dogma, but not their dogmatism. I mean, it was quite an addiction to feel like I was saving the world. So, with my spiritual beliefs and all of that. So, but instead, what happened to me is I got curious about how people shop among interpretations, which is directly related to what you're talking about, William, which is we're shopping for to shop for to thirst for knowledge is related. It's a different way of talking, or to thirst for understanding, or hooked on curiosity, as Jeff is saying. Um, uh, I think it's best motivated by uncertainty. Um, and actually, that's where this really does end. More and more, I think about incompleteness as the physical grounding of our reality. That is, the bedrock keeps pulling the rug out from under itself. And so, how that plays out is that there will always be change. And since the beginning of human pursuit of understanding, there has been an attempt to find a changeless way of dealing with change. And emergence says actually that doesn't even happen, that we're trying to figure out how change changes, but it never stops. Incompleteness in the mathematical sense, as discovered by Gödel, basically undecidability, ambiguity, ambivalence. He's figuring it out in logic and math. It applies at all levels of life, which is why answers become springboards to next questions. Um, uh, uh, when I find a solution that fits, I like to kick back and just sit on my laurels, but then a resulting dilemma proves questions in life just don't quit. Um, okay, so there we go. Let's see. All right. All right. One way or another, whether we figured out whether we're thirsting for knowledge, hooked on curiosity, understanding, and springboards to next questions, here we have been curious together. And I am very grateful for it. I've missed it these last few weeks. I will be back every week from now on, ad nauseum, until people stop showing up. I might still do it. Thank you for being here. If you aren't part of the study group yet, consider joining that sucker. You don't have to show up. We don't take roles. We don't charge anything. Your name won't be shared. You don't have to say anything. There's no homework. But it's people trying to figure out how to deal with people there's no talking to. And email me if you've got any questions or issues. And Michael, if you've got videos to show me, um, find the confidence currency or curiosity currency and tell me why I'm watching it. So I can, and I still owe you. I'm still going to see this thing. Let's see. The hook is that many people believe the federal government needs to collect taxes to pay for stuff, but it's the other way around. Okay. All right. Sorry. One last thing about that. Um, Incompleteness comes from circles. So I'm not sure it's the other way around. It might be both ways around. Um, what goes around is things that keep going around. And so I'm going to look at it, and that may be my response to it. If it's going to say, it's not this, it's that, I'm probably going to say, yeah, it's some interesting tangle of both. But and not because I'm left or right or whatever, but because that's my guess about how economies work. But I'm going to take a look at it, Michael, and then we'll see whether we have different confidence currencies on that matter. All right. See you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Great to have you. Bye.